Welcome dear students for today's online class on system software for the third semester BCA affiliated to Kuvempu University. So today we are having the session 19 under the unit number 2 titled Assembler and Loaders. So for today's discussion we will have discussion on compile and go loaders and general loader scheme. So before moving on to today's title, let us have a short recap of previous classes. So in the previous class, dear students, you have learnt, you have got understood, you have got introduced to what do you mean by a loader, what are the main functionalities of a loader, and what are the different types of loader schemes. I think you remember the 5 different loader scheme. Among them, the first 2 scheme today we are going to learn as a part of your online class. So the learning objective for today's class is to understand the basic concept of compile and go loader along with the general loader scheme. So the session outcomes will be student will be able to understand the both compile and go loader as well as general loader scheme. So now let's start with the first loader scheme, that is your compile and go. So in this compile and go loader, the instructions are read line by line. So this is very important. In this loader, the source code will be taken, and among the source code, the loader will be reading entire source code line by line, and its machine code is attained and it is directly placed in the major memory at some recognized address. That means the assembler executes in one part of the memory and the assembled machine instructions and the data is directly placed into their allocated memory locations by the compile and go loader. After finishing of assembly process, allocate starting address of the program to the location counter. So this is one of the important point one should remember. Once the compile and go work is been done, we have to allocate the starting address of the program to our LC, that is our location counter. So this loading scheme what we discuss now is called as what? Compile and go loader. And remember dear students, the compile and go loader can also be known or can also be called with another name called as assemble and go. So both compile and go and assemble and go both are referring to the single scheme of loaders. So now in this slide, let's have a pictorial representation of our understanding of compile and go loader scheme. So in the diagram you can see that in middle we have the compile and go loader. For that as a input we are getting the user program. This compile and go loader, it will reads all the user program line by line, and it will be loading by converting it into executable code of a user program. And both the compile and go loader along with the executable code is placed somewhere in the main memory. So this type of scheme is being termed as compile and go loading scheme. So now let us move on to the second one, that is our general loader scheme. In general loader scheme, the source program will be transformed to object program by some intermediary translator which may be an assembler. That means that in this general loader scheme, the source program, what the input program we are getting, that has to be converted into object program, and for that our general loader scheme uses an translator. For example, it can use an assembler itself. Then the loader admits these object modules and puts machine instructions and data in an implementable form at their allocated memory. The loader will occupy some part of the main memory. The program requires not to be retranslated every time while executing it. So that is another important thing to be remembered. See, in general loader scheme, as I said that to convert the source program into object program, this will use a translator. That doesn't mean that for every time of execution we need a translator. Only it is used as the first time, and remaining time it need not to be retranslated during the course of its execution. So this we are going to represent in a pictorial way. Let us have figure which is showing the general loading scheme. You can see here we have 2 source program. One is source program 1 followed by source program 2, and it is converted into object program 1 and object program 2 respectively with 2 different translators. And the loader is going to create object program ready for the execution in the memory along with the loader scheme. So this is how the general loading scheme is going to be implemented in our loaders there. So dear students, now you have understood the two important loader scheme, that is compile and go loader scheme and the general loading scheme. Now let us few MCQs regarding today's session. The first one is, in the general loader scheme, the source program is transformed to object program by some translator. You have to tell whether it is yes or no. This is the first statement what I have said, isn't it? In the diagram also we have shown. So yes, the general loader uses a translator for converting the source program to object program. The second MCQ is, disadvantage of compile and go loading scheme is that, remember dear student, this second MCQ, it is another very important concept to be remembered by anybody who is going to learn the compile and go loading scheme. That is, why a compile loading scheme should not be used or where it should not be used. Okay, the option number A is, there is no production of .object file. The source code is directly transformed to implementable form. Option B is, some part of the memory is engaged by the assembler, which is just a waste of memory. C is, it cannot manage multiple source programs or multiple programs written in dissimilar language. And D is all of the above. So the answer for that is D. So that's why I said earlier, this is very important. All the option A, B and C, they are the demerits or disadvantages of our first loading scheme, that is your compile and go. That means that here we are not getting any .obj files. They are directly transformed to the implementable form. And even the memory is engaged by assembler, which is just a waste of memory, and even it cannot manage with your multiple source program or a multiple program written with dissimilar language. Therefore, from the compile and go, we go to some other schemes like general loader schemes. Now we'll move to the next MCQ, that is compile and go loading scheme is also called as assemble and go. I think I have told you and you remember. Yes, go compile and go, another name of it is assemble and go loader scheme. So dear students, till now we have understood what is a loader, what are the types of a loader, and specifically in this session we have understood about two important loading scheme, that is compile and go and our general loader. So today's session summary is, the student is able to understand the compile and go and the general loader scheme. So for further readings, you can also refer the book authored by John Donovan, and the title of the book is System Programming.